Hey and welcome to episode 2 of Making the Right Play. I'm your host Ishi with my co-host,
Manit.
and today we have a very special guest. Please welcome Ashanee Kottage. Hey Ashanee,
Hi, everybody.
how's it going?
Hi.
It's going good. I finished exams last Thursday, so I'm doing better than I was in the last 8 months.
Damn,
So
that's like
Ashanee's, Ashanee, you're a third year at Georgetown, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So how was the whole online school debacle? Everything, you know.
It was chaotic, but I tried to do as much as I could in advance to prepare for it. And I also think I could have had it worse. So I had to change my schedule around a lot. I'm a science, technology, and international affairs major. It's a mouthful, and I'm a theater and performance studies minor. Um, so the way that works is I have classes in the theater department, the biology department because that's my chosen science, and the STIA department. That's the acronym for my major, and that's like international affairs science classes, right? And I had registered for a lot of those like intersectional classes, and ironically, it was a lot of those professors that when I reached out to them and said, "Look, I'm going to be like, close to 10 hours away. Do you have an asynchronous syllabus?" Most of the like policy oriented professors said no because we like all our classes are discussion based and we can't find an alternative for you. Some weeks I would go for every single class and be fatigued but still feel like I'm getting something out of these classes, and then the other weeks I just do makeup assignments, still feel a little bit off but feel less tired. So it was just suboptimal overall, but could have been worse.
I'd like to kind of speak. I'd like you to kind of speak about like the your life at Georgetown when you were like physically present there, and like what are the things you liked over there, and what are the things you kind of disliked when you were on campus, and yeah, just like a brief kind of history of your journey over there, a brief snippet
Okay.
of your journey first.
Um,
A brief history of
well, when
Ashanee's
I
time.
joined,
Yeah, never mind, I
Yeah.
made it really bad.
Yeah.
It's fine.
they draw my life. It when I joined, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, Manet, but I had like an absolutely horrible time. My first 2 weeks were so miserable. I was strongly considering dropping out because I didn't know anybody, and it felt like everybody already knew everybody, and I think that's something that college students experience in general. And it's really shitty because it seems like everyone experiences it, but then why does everyone feel it? Because even when I was at international student orientation, I was the only Sri Lankan there, and no Sri Lankan had been for undergrad to Georgetown, if at least not in the like last 50 years. So I had nobody to talk to about the experience, and also nobody from my country, because all the Indians were like they had already had their Georgetown like Delhi meetup or their Georgetown like Shanghai meetup. So everybody kind of already knew each other, had some aspects like relate to each other, whereas I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was really difficult. And then in addition to that, because I'm in the School of Foreign Service, I had to become orally proficient in a foreign language by the time I graduate. And I picked Chinese because that's what everybody's was telling me I should do. Because Sri Lanka is basically getting colonized by China.
Yeah.
So my dad always said that learning Chinese would be like a big asset, and I don't doubt that at all, especially if you want to be in business or even tech or anything at all. But I had no experience with Chinese, and I was going to classes, and the professor wasn't very good at teaching beginners because the class was also skewed. There weren't a lot of beginners in the class, even though it was an intro class. And I was just struggling a lot with, okay, would be the first time I quit something, or I could work really hard to make this work. So then I had to like reflect a lot and think about whether it was worth that extra hard work. Because, like for people like us, we can do anything we want to do, I think. But what is the opportunity cost of doing it? And I was so miserable because it was taking up all my extra time. And since I already didn't have friends, I had to make friends. So I switched to French, which I love and I had experience in, and I'm so glad I did that.
You did in high school?
But anyway, that was like my first 2 weeks. Yeah, I did in school.
Okay.
I did it for O-levels. I still had taken a 2-day break from it. 2-year break from it. But, it's a language, so it comes back to you. And then because I had all this anxiety and I'm an anxious person in general, when I was looking at extracurriculars, I didn't want to do something competitive or something that I had associated competition with. I had, just been to world schools, like the debating championship the summer before, and I thought like I had peaked there. I had just done like a bunch of MUN conferences, and I thought I had peaked there.
Yeah.
I, had my like fun with sports, and I'm like 5 feet tall. I could not be successful playing sport in America, at least not like
You'd
basketball.
be a good
Which is fine
jockey.
now.
You'd be a good jockey.
Um, so I didn't want to do anything competitive, but I've always like performed ish on the side. Like I've danced since I was very very small.
Yeah.
I did Candian dancing, like the traditional like classical dancing in Sri Lanka. I did hip hop, etc. And I had always loved to act, but never really got the opportunity to do it, to dedicate enough time and energy to it. So within the first 2 weeks of my freshman fall, there were auditions. There were open auditions to be in like a bunch of productions. So I went for every single one.
Yeah.
Because although like that is also a competitive process, it didn't feel competitive to me because I don't associate it with like something I need to win at.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky to have been cast as the lead in this show called The Language Archive. It was a beautiful show about dying languages. And I really, really fell in love with theater and performance my freshman year because it gave me an opportunity to do something different. Because I still had my love for foreign policy, my love for debate and like argumentation and all the public speaking and all. I still had all those passions, but I realized that I was exercising those passions in my classes. Because I'm in the School of Foreign Service, I inherently have to read the news, and in my classes, I have to engage in intellectually stimulating discussion and speak in public and all of that. So getting involved in theater allowed me the platform to do something that I loved. And at first, it wasn't something that I even thought would ever go on my resume. But I was still doing things like writing for like the Georgetown Journal of International Affairs. Then we had another like current affairs magazine. I was also in like a bunch of clubs. I did the classic freshman thing and joined like 50 clubs.
Yeah.
But very quickly, and I'm very, very glad that I learned this lesson early on. People had told me all throughout high school it's okay to say no. And I just didn't understand that. And it's okay to like say you just don't have the bandwidth or you don't feel passionate about things anymore. And I took that advice and I just dropped out of almost every club. Like I was on the SFS Academic Council. I was writing for a bunch of like journals, newspapers, all of that. I just dropped out. And I said no, and that's something that I think it's a skill to learn to say no. For people who are like go-getters and ambitious, saying no is, I think, a skill because we can embrace opportunity whenever we want. So I think like my life really started at Georgetown when I started saying no. And then I also started having some like imposter syndrome, which I've never had. Because I don't have imposter syndrome in academic spaces. Because I think like I put in all the work to be an academic, and I'm fundamentally an academic. But now I'm in this like theater community, which was predominantly white. Georgetown is predominantly white in general, but the theater community is white. I was like the only person of color in almost every space, at least only dark-skinned person in every space. So I felt really out of place, and I felt like, okay, do I even know what I'm doing? Shit, like how am I going to get an internship if I'm not like writing and doing MUN or whatever. But then I realized that you can do whatever you love and then learn to market it. If you're like, if you really do think that those skills apply to or are compatible, even if not apply, are compatible with the jobs or experiences that you're looking for. And the skills that I've learned from theater, like just being on stage, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of like preparation and organization, compartmentalization. Just the ability to tell stories, like devising theater, creating theater is like, a lot. It's related to the social impact work that I want to do. Then I'll also be like producing a show, which is basically, organizing something from scratch. It's very like school prefect, where you're like setting up meetings, sending out emails, like all of that. And you have so many like hats to, like roles to play when you're involved in theater. It's not just acting or singing or dancing. And I found that I was able to do what I love and also put it on my resume.
Okay.
And in addition to like not just having marketable skills, I would also just stand out. Because when you go to a school that's literally dedicated for foreign service,
Yeah.
everybody was doing UN and debate
Yeah.
and
That
like
makes sense.
writing.
Yeah.
Especially when I was applying to things internal to Georgetown, everyone was really impressed by my ability to reconcile like the STEM, the IR, and the like art stuff. And that's also, I guess, what I pride myself in. Sorry, that was a tangent, but
No, that's all good. I think that was you had a lot of like valuable things to say, and I think, see, and you were talking about like how you used all of this to like market yourself and whatnot, and I think you had like a variety of work experiences, right, all the way from working in the UN to like the fellowships you've gotten and whatnot. So could you kind of expound upon like exactly when you're trying all these external opportunities, like how these kind of like helped you out, and like how you kind of stood out in that kind of pipeline, and like how it helped you during your work experiences too.
yeah. Um, so with my first one, or at least with the UN, I'm unsure how it. Okay, so I think it's that during my like very informal interview at the UN Peacebuilding Fund, um, it was just like a very early morning call for me,
Okay.
and like my boss at the time, and also like who I consider to be a close friend and mentor, Janine, he just asked like a very like impromptu question like, do you think we should be using algorithms? Like, aren't they also biased? Like, if you're like a like, and something, and like kept asking me questions, like he was just drilling me.
Yeah.
And I think my ability to answer those questions were based on like the spontaneity that's associated with debate mostly, and the skills that I got from that, so like from high school,
Yeah.
and also in performance and in theater, almost like a lot of what we do you have to trust your instincts, because everything is student run as well, right? And you have to trust your instincts. You have to be able to respond to questions like spontaneously and respond to different situations spontaneously. And while I was on the job, it was a lot of I'd say I think the most like success that I had while I was working at the UN was my ability to advocate for the skills that I had, and also to say like, I have no idea how to do this, and
Yeah.
you need to tell me how to do this.
Yeah. That's
And you don't really learn how to say that unless you're putting yourself in outside of your comfort zone frequently. And so that's also like something that I learned. And then from there, I'd say like a lot of my communication skills I also get from theater. One of the examples that I like to use a lot is my first year at college, my freshman spring. I was hired to dance choreograph a show.
okay.
And I was really excited for it. And I knew that the show was a bit racy. It was called Hello Again, and it was about 10 different sexual encounters in 10 different decades. And so I knew that I thought that the dance would be separate to the sex. But then after I was hired, I was like, we realized that all the dancing culminated in the sex, or like in the sexual encounter. So I had to learn to intimacy choreograph as well.
Okay.
And it was,
Oh,
I
yeah.
hadn't even heard of
Yeah.
intimacy choreograph.
I didn't know that was a thing
We
till
don't
you just
even
said it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really important because like you don't know what people's relationships are with their body, or with other people touching their body, or them touching other people's body. So it's something that you really have to be trained in, and I wasn't trained in it at all. So I found a mentor on campus. She was a grad student, and she basically walked me through all the do's and don'ts very briefly, but I also like learned on the job a lot. But what I realized is that it's like almost 100% about how you communicate with the actors. You have to do your prep work in advance. You have to write like word by word, like hand on this shoulder, or like you have to do it yourself and then record yourself.
Okay.
I have to communicate it to the director. And then after I chat through it with the director, I have to talk about it with the music director, because what if like I'm making this girl do like a squat and a tumble turn, but she's singing at that point, and like, or she needs to be standing upright at that point. So then you talk to the music director, and then I would talk to the actor or actress themselves privately and say, okay, like, this is the rundown. do you feel comfortable with it? You are in charge at all times. So for example, if I'm grabbing you in for a kiss, like I will put my arm on your collar, my hand on your collar, but you are the one who comes forward. There's technically no grabbing.
Okay.
Because that can be like really triggering for people with like different, sexual experiences or different comfort levels with their body. So it was like this whole new world that I learned about. And from that, I realized like, okay, you have to embrace the awkwardness of these things. Like the entire cast they were upperclassmen with the exception of one other freshman.
Okay.
So you have to embrace the awkwardness of like telling older people how to have sex, telling like people you're not friends with how to have sex, and also telling your friends how to have sex with like other people and on stage. And then like prepare yourself. Like these are not things that you can just like, fluff around with and be like, I'm just going to go into rehearsal today and like see how it goes. You have to really prepare. And you have to be very, very clear with your communication. And also things will go wrong. And when things go wrong, you have to like also have prepared how to deal with it, or know that you can apologize, you can make mistakes, you can brainstorm solutions together, and almost everything is collaborative. Even like after I would choreograph something, like I would know that, I would inform them that this is not like stuck in stone. If you can give me your ideas, if you're uncomfortable at any point, we can change it. So that like prep work, communication, organization, responding to like crises when it comes to people, like crises with people, I think like very, very sensitive. So all those things I think have come in use when I was working at the UN, when I was doing my research this summer, because even though it was like independent research, I had a faculty advisor, I was working with an organization in the Philippines. So you wouldn't think that intimacy choreography would help you with like environmental assessments, but it does in like a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting to know the interplay of all these things. Like, at the end of the day, like everything you do, it adds to the summation that is you, the person that you are. And it is really interesting. I feel like I took that for granted when I went to college. I thought, one track mind, blah blah blah. You end up with the skills that you need for your position, but it's not actually the case. You can do a lot of other stuff that seem and are completely unrelated, but at the same time will benefit you tremendously in terms of the skills you need to perform whatever it is that you actually want to do. I think that's a really cool tale of how you ended up doing intimacy choreography. I didn't even know that was a thing. That just like blew my mind. But yeah, that is awesome. Pretty cool. But it seems like you're doing a lot of things. Like that is just blowing my mind because like I first of all, you talked about like work time, play time, like demarcation. Uh, Unfortunately, that is something I do not do, and it like ruins my life.
Same.
Like
Same.
I end up like I will end up like doing my problem sets while I'm in the parking lot after having driven my mom to Walmart or something like that. Like it's I find it really hard to do that. But like
I think that's why we needed you on also. So like
yeah, but like I feel like I guess like how do you do it? I realize that you like mentioned the concept of like saying no and understanding like what your like bandwidth is and like respecting that bandwidth that you have as an individual. But like, how do you get yourself like completely like to like solidly demarcate these spaces for your time?
Mhm. Yeah. I think the reason that I think that this semester was suboptimal is because I couldn't do that. So I can talk about how I do it when I'm traditionally on on a college campus.
sure.
Or I plan on doing it when I'm in like a closer time zone. I dedicate all of Saturday to do nothing. Like absolutely nothing. I might do laundry ish, or I might just like stay in bed all day. And I think doing nothing time is really, 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 really important. Because we often think that okay, we have to take breaks also in a productive way. Like we use our breaks to meet other people or watch a movie or like do like, you want to also plan your breaks. But I think that doing nothing of it, even if it is like binging a show, feeling like you're not doing anything productive is really, really important, and that helps me re-energize. Then I try and complete all my academic work on Sunday and Monday. So I will literally be in the library all day, Sunday and Monday. Even if I have class on Monday, I like go to class and come back. And that from my readings to my assignments, problem sets, all of that, I will try and do Sunday and Monday. And that is because when I like to go, when I go to class, I like to purely have like focus on class without worrying about the assignment for the next class or worrying if like I got the assignment for this class right because I've done it days ago, so I've been able to talk about it, I've been able to process it, whatever. And that also allows me during the week to make time for my extracurricular activities because I don't have any academic work. So when that means that I can plan to like insert my extracurricular activities from like Tuesday to Friday. Or when spontaneous things come up, I can embrace that spontaneity. And that's something that I think is really, really important because I grew up not prioritizing relationships at all. Like it was always academics first, extracurriculars second, and that would be disaggregated, right? And like people would be like 10th on my list. And that includes family, that includes myself, and that includes my friends and like whoever, if I was in a relationship. But when I went to college, I realized that I'm a people person, but I also need to reinvest in the people that have invested in me. If they are making time for me, I need to be able to make time for them. So instead of it being like this huge opportunity cost, like shit, I need to drop an assignment to be there for my friend who's going through a rough time. I've already done my assignment, and like Sunday and Monday has been dedicated to that. So it can sound a little robotic, and perhaps it is. But during the week, when there's like any spontaneous opportunity to go and get lunch with a friend, catch a movie, journal by myself, go and watch a show on campus, go to office hours and like have a chat with your professor, building relationships basically. That's what I've found I've been able to invest in when I can get all my academic work out of the way. And it's basically front loading your week, and it's draining, it's exhausting yourself those 2 days. And for some people it might take longer, some people it might take less time. But for me, and that's been my philosophy even right now, I try to do it, is I'm going to try to be the most productive version of myself from 9 to 5 or from Sunday to Monday, whatever it is, so that I can, invest in my relationships in the remaining time. Because even when it comes to those like external opportunities, like my internships, my fellowships, whatever job opportunities that have come my way, it's because I've formed a relationship with those people or that organization. A lot of the fellowships that I apply for need at least 5 recommenders.
Okay.
And like my professors are my best friends, because I have the time to go to their office hours and not just like quickly ask a question and dip because I got to make an assignment, but literally stay in there, talk to us like about their kids and my interests and their interests and the article they just wrote. And by the end of that, I have a job offer to like be their TA for the next semester, right? So it's not just like a sentimental thing for me, but it also has some like productive value by the end of it.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like the concept of like front loading your work. Yeah, go ahead, man. Sorry, I cut you off there.
Yeah, noise. So like in terms of like like you spoke about like saying no to things and whatnot. Like, so would you kind of like emphasize on this point that people should do exactly what they like love to do on campus and like just like kind of like be honest with themselves to that entire thing? Because I feel like this is since I know you personally, like you've had like moments where like you were constantly questioning these things, and I was kind of like I admire that because like sometimes like I'm not honest with myself because I feel like I have to do something for the sake of doing it, right? Like like, I feel like you always kind of like strive to do things that you love to do. So like I just wanted to know like whether that has paid off well for you, and whether that's something you like want to kind of instill in like someone else who be like in your position.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like deciding for yourself whether the opportunity cost is worth it. And I can give you 2 examples where like one where it was worth it and one where it wasn't. The first one was like, I think Manat, you know about this. I was taking a computer science class this summer.
Yeah.
And that I thought would fulfill my like science requirements for my major. And the reason I did that is because everybody was telling me, everyone can code, so you also need to learn how to code. And like it's one of those basic skills, like a language proficiency that now everybody has to have. So that's why I took this class, and this class made me miserable
Yeah.
because I wasn't learning anything. It was
Okay.
100% textbook based. There were no lectures. The leap from assignments were really, really high, and I just felt that I couldn't learn anything. There's a difference between like rising up to a challenge and then just like killing yourself to make a class work, right? Um, so then I had really struggled with it because again I was like shit, like I'm giving up on something. It means that I'm losing out on a skill that everybody is telling me that everybody has to have, right?
Yeah.
And then a bunch of things convinced me otherwise. Well, like Rishane, like one of my friends, he was like, it's not really quitting, it's actually strategic withdrawal.
Yeah.
Because it helps you focus your attention on things that not everybody has to be skilled at everything. Like
Yeah.
that is why division of labor has like been so successful in like the corporate world, but also in the way that we function, like in the way that we function in our lives, right? So you don't have to like learn to code to be successful. Like that was the first thing, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, even if you do want to have it as a skill, this might not be the way you have to achieve it. And that's something that I think like perhaps you like Manit can speak more about because like learning to code in this academic environment or
Oh, yeah.
learning C++ in this academic environment was so miserable and I wasn't learning.
Yeah.
Whereas there are other ways through like LinkedIn learning, through
Oh, yeah.
like just teaching yourself, asking a friend to help you. Like I decided that those might be more effective ways for me to learn.
For sure.
So it wasn't me like giving up on this skill. It was me saying this is not the way I want to achieve this skill,
Okay.
and also perhaps this is not the time. Because people who had taken this class in the past had said, we literally sit in the library as a group and figure this stuff out, and that's how we got through this class.
Yeah.
I didn't have that here. Nobody had that here.
Yeah.
Like about 5 other people I know like withdrew from this class. So that's when I decided like there'll be a W on my transcript, and if an employer sees that and talks to me about it, I can walk through exactly why I did it and
Yeah.
why, like, if anything, that thought process is more of an asset than like me taking a class I'm miserable in and like passing it and not even being able to utilize C++ like when I
Yeah.
need to because I
Yeah.
don't really know how to do it.
Yeah. That
I've
makes
just
sense.
learned how to cheat the quizzes, Then like when I found that it would be worth it is when I was prepping for my management consulting interviews. And I have a lot of math anxiety. Since I was really, really young, like I, got my A stars for math, but getting there took a lot of work, way more work than it took for any other subject. And it is my like weaker subject, and I'm not sure why. But when I've like worked on it, it's helped, but it's not something that comes naturally to me. So then for the quantitative or like the mathematical portion of my consulting interviews took a lot of prep, but it also caused a lot of anxiety. And no matter how much I was prepping, I started late. I started my prep late, so that's my fault. I was prepping a lot. I was practicing and practicing, and I just wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
But I was very lucky to have got an interview. And after my interviews, both my interviewers called me and said, look, you were near perfect, but your quant was really weak. If you want to, like, we would love to have you, reapply next year after you work on your quant, right?
Yeah.
So even there, I feel like I was at a crossroads of like, do I want to keep like pursuing management consulting, or do I want to like pursue something that doesn't require like any quant knowledge at all, like go completely down the like NGO management scene or whatever. But then I realized that there are some things that are worth the opportunity cost because this like prep work is this kind of like being able to do that sort of like quick math and like look at this data and analyze it is something that will be useful to me like in general. Even just like when I'm looking at data, when I'm reading an article, if I am going to be a management consultant, it will be an important skill. But then, there's the argument of like, but why? Someone else can always do the math for you. More often than not, the math is done for you and like you have calculators. So why bother? So that's when I realized like maybe it's an arbitrary test you have to pass. And even if that's what it is, I'd want to pass it and it's worth it to get to that point.
Yeah.
And like after that, I'm done. Like I don't really have to do like math sums in
I get what you're saying.
format.
I think I get it. It's basically like software engineering interviews and like the whole lead code nonsense. But yeah.
This is one of the shout out to Los Hermanos de Stanford. We do this thing called things called spotlights at meetings in Los Hermanos, and one person basically talks about their life, and people ask them questions. And one of the classic questions is, if you could lick the foot of anybody in the world, alive or dead, fictional or non-fictional, and get their quote unquote power, who would it be?
Oh, this is a big one. I don't know. I think it's a really unfair question.
It's one person that
But
gets.
uh,
Come on, I feel
okay.
like there's one somebody out there. You say you read a lot of fiction.
I'd say Tupac.
Tupac. He's dead. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you want him dead?
And yeah, and the ability is like to like I don't know. There's so much. He's very talented, and it also just caused so much controversy and like so much drama. It's like
Nice.
that is one. But like my most sentimental answer would be like my mom's. Yeah, I think she has a lot of like powers that are not ostensible, more latent. Like yeah.
I feel like that carries into people in their genes, right? But anyway, close enough.
Sweet. Cool.
Anyway, I think that wraps up what we have planned for today. But who do we have next, Manet, coming up?
I believe it's Isuru next. So that it's about like getting a full scholarship too.
Ew.
There's a very weird triangle dynamic between Manet, Ashanee, and Isuru. I'm not
It's
worried
sweet.
about it. I don't wanna
It's
go
cute.
It's cute and it's weird at the same time. But anyway, Isuru's up next, and he's a really, really interesting guy, and I think everybody should hear his story. But yeah, thanks Ashanee for being part of this podcast.
Okay.
And
Thanks for having me.
For
yeah,
sure.
no worries.
I think y'all should bring back Isuru at the same time one
Oh
day.
yeah. We should definitely do that. Yeah.
Potentially.
Oh damn. you have problems with that, damn.
I mean, I also have like a limited number of guest invites I can use as a caster, but we'll figure that out. Anyway. Cool. Thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of Making the Right Play.
Thank you.
And we're done. Thanks for listening to another episode of Making the Right Play. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, Content. This will keep you posted on new episodes, bonus content, and blooper reels. We hope you make the right play.